Tara, can you hear us?
She's on
Yeah,
mute.
yeah. What are you doing?
Oh, great. Okay, great. Super.
It's the only.
All right. I sent a text to everybody. No further response. What? Don't you have any polls? Apparently not. I discover throughout my life that I have significantly less pool than I ever have given myself credit for.
Yeah, you ever see the scene from Bronx Tale? He's coming out of the confession. He's like, your guy might be bigger than my guy there, but my guy's bigger than your guy. Yeah, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that.
What's that? Yes. What do you need? The
Go to the green.
See.
Hmm?
This is where I bring you. Great. Thank you, Dave.
So I think we should wait for them to get 100% ready.
Yeah,
And
we're,
then-
we're just going to give them another minute. So they're going to get the tech ready, and we're waiting for a couple more commissioners so that we make sure that we have quorum so we can conduct our regular business. Even if we can't conduct regular business today without those commissioners, we'll still take public comment. There's no reason to stop us from doing
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And any public comment we take today will be circulated to the whole group.
Yes.
For action.
Do you need promoted?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Microphone check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 to 5. This microphone for the camera, but. So if you everybody's talking without the speakers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That sounds great.
microphone check, Bill, red microphone, Robert picture. Good question. Yeah, it's on. It's microphone check, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2.
Taking minutes.
Check, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1, 2. Microphone 1, check, 1, 2, yep. Okay.
Helps you break. There you go.
Okay.
Great. So we do not have any additional.
Okay. We have one.
One.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We have one. We have one on their way. There's somebody on the stairs. I know there's at least one more commissioner en route, so we'll see who this is. Bottom of the stairs, probably someone, you know, looking for the reference room or something. All right. Well, I think we should go ahead and get started. So I'd like to call this February meeting of the City of Pittsburgh's Commission on Human Relations to order. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Liddy Barlow. I serve as chairperson of the commission. We have 3 other commissioners here in person, one more joining us online. Maybe we can just start by having all of the commissioners introduce themselves, and then maybe also our staff members introduce themselves too, so that you all know who we are. So, Carleen.
My name is Carleen King. I'm a commissioner. My name is Rita Porterfield. I'm the acting deputy director for now.
I'm Dawn. I am a commissioner as well. So next, Courtney Smith. I'm staff member. Actually.
And I'm Rachel Shepherd. I'm the executive director of the commission.
Super. And Tiara, do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm Tiara Collins. I'm a commissioner.
All right, perfect. So we are especially grateful to be breaking out of our usual city county building and or Zoom setting to host this community meeting today. And we're really grateful to the members of the community who are here with us. We will begin by conducting our some of our regular business and updates. We'll try to move through that at a pretty good clip so that you aren't stuck here listening to us talking about our budget and other things for too long. And then we really want to spend time this afternoon hearing from members of the public, especially on our 2 focus issues for today, which are criminal history and language access. So let's start by taking a look at our agenda. We do make time in our agenda every month for public comments. We'll be receiving most of our public comments later in the meeting. If there's any member of the public here to make any other kind of announcement or bring any other issues to our attention besides criminal history and language access, you're welcome to do so now, and any other public comments. And then let's move into some items of business from our committees. Our treasurer, Tracy Baton, is not present. So I'm going to look to Courtney for any financial updates. I know it's just about time to work on the budget already.
It is. So we're going to make sure we have a finance committee meeting, actual meeting. And the only update I really have is that our resolution for our solicitor contract did get passed and signed by the mayor. So we're good to go. Just got to get signatures and things. So.
Great. Yeah, that's exciting. My hope is that our new commission solicitor might be able to be present with us either at our March meeting or our April meeting, so that all the commissioners can meet our new solicitor and we can begin establishing that relationship, because it's an important one. Personnel, I think I'm going to skip the for now, since the personnel updates are primarily in your report, Rachel. So we'll just cover those when we get down to your report. And similarly, is there anything from the Community Relations Committee, or should we just look to the variety of upcoming community events in your report too?
I think it's safe to look at the events in my report.
Awesome.
We haven't had another meeting of the Community Relations Committee, but that should also happen again this month.
Yeah, exactly. And just to remind my fellow commissioners, we are looking for somebody to be the chairperson of the Community Relations Committee, which mostly entails making sure that that committee is convening on a regular basis. And the commissioners are stepping up to our responsibilities around the city. So just consider this is where, if I was in my own place of business, I would say, see what is being spoken to your heart about whether you might be being led to serve in that way. Since this is a civic commission, I won't describe my work that way, but yes, that's just think about the possibility. All right, and that is a good lead in, I think, to our executive director's report, which is really robust. So Rachel, can you summarize that for us?
It is very robust. I apologize for the lengthiness, but this has been a very
necessary for doing good work.
It has been a very busy month. So let me.
It's right here on paper.
Okay, so in the way of personnel and administrative updates, I was able to attend that retreat, which is why I was not here for the last commission meeting. And it was amazing. It was a fantastic opportunity, met so many empowered women and just very passionate people. You know, it was women ages 21 to 70. It was a very wide breadth of experience, and everyone was very, very supportive. So I walked away with a much larger supportive network than I walked in with, and lots of good things to apply to the commission as well. So we had our candidates for deputy director. We interviewed in person, and one has been chosen. A conditional offer should go out shortly. Rita and I are interviewing, well, this said are interviewing, but on Friday last week, we interviewed 15 candidates for a summer legal clerk position through the Allegheny County Bar Association. It was wonderful. They are so refreshing. Lots
filled with hope.
They are so filled with hope. Yeah, speaking with the young people was really, really refreshing, even if it was a really long day of back-to-back interviews. Lots of good work to be done there, and we'll be choosing one of those. Unfortunately, we can only take on the one this year, but we'll be choosing one law clerk for the summer, and they should start sometime around the end of the semester. One of the things that is not listed here is that 2 new commissioners were confirmed by City Council, Kyle Webster of Action Housing and Mary Jane McCullough of Global Wordsmiths. So very excited to have those new commissioners start, and I'll have to schedule orientation. So if anyone's interested in participating in that, please let me know. In the way of our cases and enforcement for this month, we do have 67 open cases. 11 of those are pending intakes. We have 11 post-cause cases, lots of probable cause cases recently. 6 of those are pending court cases. And then we have 1 case that's on the public hearing track that I will have to connect with the public hearing section about. And we're looking to have 7 determinations for compliance review this month. We do have a ton of stuff under the education and outreach. I was able to make a ton of new connections this month. We have an event coming up that I'll highlight, which is for Fair Housing and Second Chance Month, where we are highlighting, again, the criminal history and language access, particularly for housing providers that receive federal funding. We're going to be exploring their barriers and difficulties with doing individualized assessments for criminal history in that public sector housing, and also giving them more resources for how to properly engage in a language access process, for when they're interacting with the limited English proficiency population. You know, a lot of folks just don't feel comfortable being handed an interpretation phone number and having to call and not knowing really how to go about doing that. So we're going to provide them some more information on that. We had a basic landlord training at the end of January, and there weren't as many attendees as we hoped. We were able to get a couple things done, and the staff were able to attend. That was done with the Fair Housing Partnership. And we were able to explore a lot of real world examples for the fair housing piece of what we do, and really give the landlords who don't know as much about that process good information so that they can take that back to their teams. The city held Mother Language Day on February 21st. I unfortunately could not attend because I had a sick kid, but Michelle King from the city's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs is amazing. She set that all up, and she was, during her speech, able to give the information to the crowd about the preferred language protections that we offer in housing and public accommodations. So hopefully more people will, the more people that know, the better, so that they can advocate for their rights. Human Resources has invited me to participate in a panel discussion for Women's History Month. So myself, Felicity Williams, Sylvia Harris, and Kim Lucas from the city's various departments, their leadership, we're going to sit on a panel on March 22nd and talk to the city staff and let them know what it means to be a female leader for the city of Pittsburgh, how we got here, what challenges we faced in reaching this point, and hopefully it'll be a good discussion. I wanted to give a special thanks to Rabbi Gibson at this meeting because he was interviewed by the Jewish Chronicle about his work with the commission. And it was, I've been telling everyone, it's probably the most positive article we've seen about the commission in my entire tenure at the commission. And that's almost 8 years now. So I just thank him sincerely for speaking up about the commission. Also to Carlene King for fulfilling her interview obligations with Championship Chase. I watched it and it was wonderful. Thank you so much. We also attended 2 Be a Good Neighbor tenant town hall events at the University of Pittsburgh this month. We were able to engage with a number of students on their tenant protections, if they're if they're going out in the world and getting a place to live for the first time on their own, we were able to give them all the resources that they need. Most kids, that they just don't know that they have civil rights to begin with. It doesn't seem like at the forefront of their mind, but you know, when the female students come to us and mention sexual harassment, we do let them know, hey, that is covered. Same with domestic violence protections. And we had a group of kids that were potentially at risk with national origin as well. So lots of different things that we can expand upon for them. And we look forward, we're going to continue working with them probably every spring and fall semester as long as they'll have us. So I'm not going to go into detail about all of my meetings this month, but it was a ton. I was able to meet with the chief of staff and the new idea manager, one of the new council members, a lovely Arrow of Light den in the Cub Scout pack to speak with all of their folks. Lots and lots of good connections this month. I'm so proud to be representing the commission now and have these conversations with people to let them know that we're here for them and that how we can support each other. Lots of new partnerships are being made. Finally, our special projects. We are working on our LGBTQIA+ research with Outwith Studio. That's our vendor. So we are building a group of people to conduct workshops, to prepare survey questions for the surveys and the interviews themselves. So that's where we are right now with that work. If anyone in particular is interested in making a connection to another agency that does that kind of work or would like to be, participating in that themselves, please let me know. We are working on 2 EEOC joint innovation projects right now. The first is an employment CLE that we will have hopefully May 1st for the employment attorneys in Pittsburgh so that they can better understand the administrative discrimination filing process. We've had some difficulty working with attorneys where they just don't understand our process and they will just, kind of ghost us as soon as the complaint is filed. And we want to do better by the complainants. So that's the first. The second is we're going to move forward to working with the employment unions to reach their memberships, let them know better ways that they can, or more ways that they can advocate for themselves within their employment. We are working on a Fair Housing Month proclamation that should go forward on Tuesday, April 9th. And it will focus on fair housing as a human right. So if anyone is interested in being a part of that, City Council chambers, the morning of Tuesday, April 9th, we will be there. If you're interested in fair housing or housing as a human right, we'd love to have you. And finally, we're working on, is that finally, or is that more? Okay, yeah, sorry. So yeah, we're working with the Human Rights City Alliance on a community-focused fair housing event that will take place on April 13th. That is a Saturday. We're looking to give people more information on their tenants' rights, preparing a tenant bill of rights of sorts so that we can give them the most information on how to advocate for themselves and to support themselves in that tenant process. We'll also be exploring community land trusts and other things. So if you are interested in that, I can provide details. We don't have an official flyer yet, but we are working on that. And that's it. Not that that wasn't.
Yeah, that was plenty.
Indeed.
Commissioners, any questions for Rachel regarding her report? Great, super, thank you. It's exciting to see not just our ongoing work continuing, but all of these kind of new community connections and new initiatives bubbling up. So thank you so much for everything you do on our behalf. And it'll all be even better once you have a deputy director so that so it's terrific. Of old business that we have.
Oh, Rita, did you have?
Oh, yeah, Rita, sorry.
Minutes.
We can't approve the minutes. We don't have a quorum.
We don't
I
have
skipped
quorum,
it.
so we'll have to skip
I
it.
skipped it subtly so as not to
Sorry.
underline the fact that we don't have a quorum.
I know.
It'll be okay.
Yeah,
We
no,
can
we're
kick
good.
it. We
But
can
yeah,
kick it to the
yeah,
next month.
yeah,
It'll be
yeah,
okay.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So one item of old business is we are in the midst of our strategic planning process. If you are a staff member or a commissioner, you received a link to complete SOAR analysis survey, which kind of takes that strengths-based approach to thinking about what comes next for us. Jill, how are we doing on the results of those SOAR surveys? Do we have 100% participation?
I am unsure if we have 100%. When I checked in with Sarah and Amanda last week, we had almost all the staff and we had about 7 commissioners that had completed the survey. So
Yeah.
it is looking really good.
It's looking good. Yeah, that's progress. All
Yes.
right, great.
The next step will be to find a date and time that we can meet with Sarah and Amanda to go through those survey results and really explore what we collected. So I will follow up with all the commissioners on a date and time that might work for you all.
Absolutely. And just a reminder to us that we only have this contract with our consultants around the strategic planning through the end of June. So we do want to, kind of move with some determination towards getting this process rolling during that contract period. And I think that means that we are now ready to hear from the community. Yeah, so as a commission, we are committed not only to helping pass laws that provide civil rights protections and to enforcing those laws when cases come to us, but also continually hearing from the community about how well these protections are working and what more is needed to ensure that every person across the city has the same rights to access housing, employment, and public accommodations. So we are really excited to have you all here today. And we're looking forward to the stories and experiences that you have to share with us. I'm simply going to invite you to kind of raise your hand and volunteer to tell us about your experiences. Should we do the issues one at a time, or should we just invite folks to come share stuff? What do you think?
Why don't we get started with the criminal history?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to begin with with our protections around criminal history and your experiences. If you or people that you work with professionally or informally are affected by facing the ramifications of seeking employment or housing while having a criminal background. So is anyone here to speak to that matter? Are we mostly language folks?
I know. Is it okay? Can I-
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you come up to the microphone and speak there?
So it's not discrimination against people with criminal histories, but it's the way that they require a criminal history check. It's done through a social security number.
Super. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Laura Perkins.
Yeah,
I use
super.
she, her pronouns, and I work at Casa San Jose,
Great.
just down the street.
Absolutely.
So requiring a criminal history check for different processes. If you don't have a social security number, you're often excluded from even being able to do your criminal history check. Which means that for example, housing, a lot of landlords require criminal history or employment. And if you don't have a social security number to participate in that background check, which is sometimes done with state police, and state police collaborate with ICE. So all of those, just requiring that, often it means that if you can't do it, then you can't get the house, you can't get the job.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So so it's kind of different. It's not discriminating against people with criminal history, but it's just the whole process of requiring it excludes folks that don't have a social security number.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I can think of so many other ramifications for that too, even beyond our protections, right? Like volunteering at your kid's school and things like that. Yeah, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
In response to that, I would say that we are working at the city on protections, not just, so we're looking at these criminal history protections in housing where they should not be able to do like an unending look back period to look at your criminal history. But we are aware of the ramifications for the undocumented in trying to find housing, and this is one of them. If you don't have a social security number, then that can be a barrier for sure. But we are working with the local housing organizations to try and navigate what we can do to better support the undocumented folks that are here in Pittsburgh, because we don't want them to be kept out of the housing market. We don't want them to be kept out of the being able to get employment. So that is something that we are looking at. It might take a little bit more time because on the various levels of things that we can enforce, that is like very far from what we can actually do, but we are working with folks that are doing it.
It's very difficult to get an expungement without a social security number. And so for folks that are able to get expungements, expunge charges don't show up in the searches. But if you don't have a social security number and they are able to do a public database search, for example, UJS portal, our community member undocumented folks, it's much harder to get an expungement, which means that records that would have been taken off many other people's cases remain on community member cases.
Okay,
Thank you.
super. Yeah, thank you, Laura. Okay, great. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to criminal history protections? And if not, we will move on to language. All right, super. There's a lot of you. Raise your hand and we'll just call on folks until everybody has a turn.
I should probably preface this conversation by saying that the commission in no way uses any information about anyone to report to any particular entity. We have zero affiliation with ICE or other related entities. We are not here to, report anyone. Complaints can even be made with our office anonymously. Everything can be kept private up until a public hearing, which is rare that we get to that point. So I just want to make that clear for everyone.
Volunteering in schools, you have to have a social security number to be able to get your criminal background check to volunteer in schools. So by making that a part of the process, that also excludes people without social security numbers from being able to volunteer in their own kids' schools.
Yep. Okay. Like to go first?
I have something to say.
I'm sorry, can you use the microphone because we are sharing? Mhm. And make sure to introduce yourself if you feel comfortable doing so.
Yes, I'm Leila Vasquez and I work on PHC here on Broadway. And I just started to work on housing and I would like to support what she says. I am personally from Brazil and I've been taking care of this type of population, undocumented. Housing, it's impossible. Language also, it's a very big barrier, and although we have several agencies that gives English classes, but you guys know language is not something that we acquire from one day to the other. It takes years. And this population works a lot, meaning that sometimes they don't have time for the courses. I just would like to say that I know it's super difficult situation, but I just like to present this. I have now actually around 20 families, Brazilian families looking for houses, but we don't have doors to knock. It's just personal connections with one or other agents that we know will receive someone without the social security. Just by doing taxes or showing the income, 3 months of income.
Yeah, thank you.
I will say also, just to open it up a little bit more on the language access front, that the event that we're having on April 3rd is geared towards recipients of federal funding in housing, because they do have that mandate to provide language access in the application process, in any interaction that they have with folks. They have an obligation to translate documents. And currently we're not seeing them actually doing that. So we are giving them this education as a courtesy, sort of, to encourage them to see the people who are of limited English proficiency as people and stop seeing them as a burden in their processes. We want people to be treated as individuals, and for these service providers to have a better understanding of how to treat people in those situations and how to correspond with them properly. There are differing cultural norms, and we want them to be aware of that. So we're going to explore that a lot with that particular event. what we are also doing is working again with the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs in the city they developed a model lease that we will distribute to private landlords. So they as private landlords do not have the same obligation to pay for translation interpretation, but we're trying to get them on board with doing this. If we can give them, you know, a glossary of terms so that they can provide that to, you know, limited English proficient tenants. They have translated versions of that model lease. We've done all of the top 10 languages here in Allegheny County. We don't use census data. We use actual like service provider data from here in Allegheny County. So we are working on that with them and highlighting the fact that preferred language and citizenship, immigration status, national origin, place of birth, all of these things are covered under the city code, as well as some on the federal level. So we want them to be aware that they could very well end up in a situation where they have a discrimination complaint filed against them if they don't cooperate. So we are trying to use more of the carrot approach with these folks right now than the stick, but the stick is there. So if you or any of the folks that you work with in your service populations experience any sort of discrimination on the basis of any of the things I've just mentioned, and then more, we actually have a list of our protections, but if you have them they can come to our office and file as long as it's occurred within the city of Pittsburgh limits. And if it hasn't, you can always send them our way anyway, and we'll refer them to someone who can help them, because we know that we can't do everything within the city limits. We know a lot of it happens in the outskirts in the greater Pittsburgh area, in Allegheny County, or even beyond, but we can get you connected.
Yeah, no,
please.
that's great.
So my question is, I'm an interpreter, so I help patients go to clinics and different agencies, different hospitals. So there are some clinics right now that are not accepting patients that do not have insurance. They say, oh, you don't have insurance, we cannot see you today. Oh, that's it. I've seen it so many places now. Even my daughter, she is looking to have a help with Medicaid for her son. And so I was at her house when one of the ladies at the Allegheny clinic called my daughter, and she said, so I see that if your son doesn't have the Medicaid insurance by Monday, we cannot see you at the office. So that caught my attention. And I wonder if they are doing it right now. It has been happening.
Thank you. And that's a point that affects more than just people who maybe are newcomers, right? We're talking about people who just don't have the ability to have insurance, you know, people that are lower income. And unfortunately, the majority of those folks are people of color, people who are in these positions that we can protect with our anti-discrimination laws. So that's definitely something I can look into. I'm not all that familiar with the medical processes because yeah.
Plain discrimination.
Yeah, thank you.
Because that just say, no, we cannot see you today, and goodbye. You see?
Yeah.
Speak. You have things to offer.
Well, to your point, so for a medical office to not take a person because they don't have participating insurance, they can do that as long as it's evenly applied across the board. So they can say we're only participating in these insurance programs. If they are telling someone that specifically, or it's only applied to people maybe based on race or national origin or another reason, then it might be discrimination. However, for children, I assume this is a child that was involved here because you said your daughter's son. CHIP is available, and that is a state program. There may be a wait list, but that is a publicly available program, and I believe it's accessible to all children under 18 that reside in the Commonwealth, regardless of their status. And I can give you some contact information for CHIP at the end of this meeting.
So yes, and I'm in the back office doing, the the billing and coding. And I continuously heard, we cannot discriminate, we have to admit everybody. If somebody comes to the hospital, we just see them.
If it's an emergency basis, yes, and there are federal laws for emergency care that does include labor and birth of children. So emergency care cannot be denied. But if it's a private office, they can pick and choose what they'll accept as far as
Okay.
participation.
There's nothing that we can do with just, that they are allowed, actually.
As long as it's not emergency services, yes. If you need insurance resources, CHIP is an available, that might be a pathway to help in your particular situation.
Okay, thank you.
Super. Laura, did you want to hop in?
I'm
Please,
sorry.
you have.
Do not
nothing to
apologize.
for, yeah.
Keep it going.
I have a long list. Yeah, because language access is really important to Casa Jose. One specifically talking about medical things, what huge barrier is birth certificates issued in the US, because the lack of clarity when getting the information to put on the birth certificate. The birth certificates are often mailed to the person, so weeks later, and then the process to get that name fixed because of a miscommunication due to lack of interpretation being provided. It's months and months and months and missed work having to go back to the hospital. And then the phone calls you make, there's not interpretation provided on that phone line that you have to call and press a bunch of buttons. So birth certificates end up being a huge hassle for a community when they shouldn't be. It should be easy to say, oh, nope, that R should be an L or something like that. But it's very difficult to fix. The biggest one is police. Pittsburgh police have a language access policy there that they are categorically not following. And it is directly impacting our community to a grave extent. People are being put in jail because the police are refusing language access. I don't want to just target Pittsburgh police. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh police are actually doing much better than the 125, 130 police departments in Allegheny County, and let's not even talk about the other counties around. But the standard is low. And I don't say this because I don't relish saying this. I want it to be better, but it's really bad. I have case after case after case of police not only refusing interpretation on site. Actually, I can give you a case of 2 blocks over. I was walking back to the office. There was a gentleman with his hands behind his back, sitting on his porch, and the police officer was standing next to him. It was obviously Pittsburgh zone 6, because we're right here. And I asked the gentleman in Spanish, do you have interpretation? Like, do you understand what's going on? No, I have no idea what's going on. They refused interpretation. And I asked the police officer, why didn't you get interpretation? He speaks Spanish, and the police officer said, and I quote, I have nothing to say to him. If he has his hands behind his back, clearly his rights need to be read to him, let alone saying you're under arrest. We have other cases of police or the charge being put as to resisting arrest. But if interpretation isn't provided, how do you know that you're being put under arrest? So that's an extra charge. Fighting this is challenging because often attorneys tell the community members, well, let's hold off on making a report to either the supervisor or to the Commission on Human Relations or to the Citizens Police Review Board, which, side note, shouldn't be called Citizens Police Review Board because it doesn't serve only citizens. But attorneys often say, hold off on that because we need to negotiate these charges with the police officer. And we need the police officer to be in a good mood to be able to negotiate this charge and to maybe drop the charges so it doesn't affect the Alicia case. So the effects are grave, and it's hard to get justice because the community members are on the defensive, right? Like they're being charged and they're being criminalized when often lack of interpretation has caused that situation. I had another situation, this was Pittsburgh police, it was zone 5, where the police only spoke with the English speaker. There were 5 people present. It was a fight between 5 people, and they only spoke with the English speaker. But when there are 5 parts to a story, you need to speak with the other people involved and witnesses, and they refused. And the English speaker ended up being the aggressor. But the police learned that after 2 people were put in jail unnecessarily. and going through jail is a traumatic experience. I don't need to go through that. But just the fact of going into jail affects someone's immigration case. So I'm just giving you examples of effects of the police not using interpretation. They have a policy and they're, like I said, categorically violating their own policy. That's just on the scene. We also have Zone 5 police on Washington Boulevard. Our community member came in twice in person, and I personally called and asked for an interpretation, and they scheduled a time for the Spanish speaker to go to the department to speak with the police officer, so they could have an interpreter at that time. The person went at that time, and they didn't have an interpreter. So it's just like we have to go out of our way to get interpretation, and it's still denied. And this is Pittsburgh. Like again, this is the best in the area. Yeah, if you all have suggestions as to, because again, we need to play nice with the police so that they don't hurt our community, so they don't shoot our community unnecessarily, right? So they don't put our community in jail. But because of the risks of angering a police officer and challenging their authority, asking for their right to interpretation, we're in a tough space. So do you have any advice?
Yeah, super, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted I want to go back to the first piece of what you said around the birth certificates. I'm remembering the birth of my own daughter and getting the phone call in my hospital room at 4 o'clock in the morning asking for the birth certificate information. And I mean, as a native English speaker, it was challenging to be sure that I had everything right at that moment. So I feel like, you know, we have so many hospitals in the area that specialize in labor and delivery. I think like that feels like a place where just helping those processes understand the impact of their current practices that are having on people, and to work with them to ensure that we can improve those to prevent the really unnecessary burdens that have been placed on the community. I'm really sorry to hear about the experiences with the police also. I think that it is one thing to have a policy, and it is another thing to make sure that that policy is followed, and that everyone representing an entity is committed to following that policy. So that feels like, it also feels like a challenge that might be, as you note, better addressed by approaching it at the more systemic level rather than on this case-by-case basis, where it might have the inadvertent effect of harming the individual who's seeking that relationship with the police. So yeah, I'm grateful to be aware of that and to be able to work with our partners, because the police are, like, as you sort of referred to, there's the commission, there's the CPRB, like there's a lot of entities that have responsibility for working with the police.
First, I would like to check with one of my investigators who's formerly of OMI. Is that a question for OMI if they were not following that policy?
And I was going to suggest, I know that it can be a delicate situation when an individual doesn't want to go because of circumstances or possible consequences, but the Office of Municipal Investigation, they directly oversee the police. They are the administration for alleged policy violations. They're connected to the Fraternal Order of Police, who also is involved with alleged policy violations. So that would be your source. And even if, it's a blanket of complaints, not just one, that way a certain individual isn't targeted. Just making them aware of the situation and making them aware of the situation so that they are at least aware of it. And you can file a complaint anonymously there as well, unless it goes as well. But you can file anonymously, you can call and just make the complaint so that they are aware of the issue, because if they aren't aware of it, it can never be addressed. And I know it's a cause of concern, but it's better to present the issue, have it known to be swept. But that would be the direct contact. And I can get you their information after.
Thank you, Shanice. This is one of the first things that came up for me 8 years ago when I joined the commission. I remember going to a community meeting out in Carrick for the Bhutanese community. And they had a very, very similar story where, you know, the police were called, there were aggressors, there were people who spoke English, people who didn't. And again, they just go with whoever they can communicate with at the time. They don't bother to try. So it's disheartening to hear that we haven't come as far as I would have hoped in the last 8 years. What I'll say is, actually, I'd like to ask a question about maybe emergency services. If someone has to call for emergency services, are you finding that that is, they have interpretation?
Yeah, 911, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, 911 is excellent.
Okay, I know that that was a problem back then as well, so I'm glad to hear that it's improved.
Is there
Yes.
any reason why the police can't use like a interpretation app or a translation app?
We have an interpretation line on contract. So
Doing the plan.
I would say that there's no, so the way it works and when they come in, they technically have the ability to use a lot of mental health resources, translation apps. It is really to the discretion of the officer on how they choose to proceed with each call. And oftentimes you hear about these incidents where they're just not utilizing the resources that they have in place, or they're just not following their policies according to how they should be followed. So it's not that deep. They even have now, I think it's like Community Services, Office of Human Services. And that office is specifically there to assist with a mental health crisis or translation resources or all types. And they just unfortunately are not following the guidelines that they're supposed to be following.
yeah, so the city has an interpretation line that they use that they can use on the fly if they need to. It's not optimal. You want that in-person interpretation, but if they have to, they can use that. And they don't. Again, and I think it might be a level of comfort for folks where they are literally handed a line and said, here, dial this phone number and, you know, try to figure out the language and, you know, just take it from there. And they have no concept of how to actually move through that process effectively.
It's about training.
Yeah.
It's about
Mhm.
training
Yeah, I mean,
and being up on that training. And it's not hard training. It's not hard.
thank you for sharing.
Else. Would love to hear other experiences or other areas of concern.
Or even if you have questions for us as a commission, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Commission on Human Relations or know what we do, or, you know, maybe don't know all the ins and outs of it, but we're happy to share whatever we can with you if you have questions.
Just one thing to add what people have said about the
Do you want to grab a microphone yet?
Here, yeah, there you go.
It's just to add what Laura said on the birth certificate, and it's just said now it's a matter of training.
Mhm.
On birth certificates, they have to keep in mind that we different cultural background. We use our mother's last name, in our names as well.
Mhm.
And it's not like America. I know we are here, and you guys does different,
Mhm.
but someone needs to be trained. So tell the people here is different. If you insist on names, you're gonna be in trouble. I myself have documents with the first and the second name, and then the first and the third name. You know, I'm in the US, I'm trying my best to use just my first and my last name, but that's how it is, and I have documents that are from Brazil. I cannot change that as well, so you stay in the middle, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I know it's hard situation, but we have to keep in mind the cultural background is different.
Mhm. Thank you.
That case, where he was charged with resisting arrest, he also had the charge of, providing, a false name to police, a false, documents, because he gave his first name and his first last name, and when the police saw his document, his passport, they said, well, you gave me a wrong name, and so that's just an example of.
Yeah.
It happens a
Yeah.
lot.
Do you follow them through that process of if they are charged at all, or do you know of legal resources that do you suggest certain
Yeah,
legal
We
resources?
set this individual up with legal resources, but he was in jail for a long time. And just for the record, that case started off as a 911 call for a schizophrenic. So the police shouldn't have never been involved. That's a different conversation.
So much of what we work on at the commission or see is just outside of our purview. And we can only impact so many things, but it has everything that we do impacts everywhere. You know, all of the anti-discrimination laws are touching everything. If you want to talk about like prejudice against people, it's everywhere in every aspect of life. And we're fairly limited in what we can actually truly impact, but please know that if we're not taking this information and doing nothing with it, we will find people that can do something about this, and I will escalate it as high as I possibly can, because hearing these stories just makes me sick to my stomach. And nobody should be living through things like this. It's a very simple answer and it can be fixed.
Also, bring any experiences to share or any concerns or questions this afternoon? Please.
Marriage licenses
Yeah.
continue to, the office is in the city county building. I know it's a county service, but it's physically in Pittsburgh, and they continue to deny interpretation. It's very frustrating.
See, we've had a number of calls about the county, and because they are county government, it's outside of our jurisdiction. So like it does fall within the geography, but if it's a county or state entity or federal entity, we can't take that case. And unfortunately, the county commission is not built the same way as ours. And the state commission is a little lax in their enforcement. So I put that lightly, but we are, looking at different ways that we can impact it. And we're not afraid to make a call. I've had that call before where people are trying to get interpretation at the county offices, at the courthouse even, and they can't get it. And when I explore that, there are very simple things in place for them to do. And it just seems like again, it comes down to training. They weren't told how to access those resources or what to do in that scenario. I'll also note that if you don't feel comfortable speaking up today and you have something that you want to share with us, I do have printouts of the questions, just really basic questions. We have them in English, Portuguese, and Spanish over here. So if you would like to provide written testimony or know somebody who might want to share with us, please take some. They're available to you. I can make them available digitally as well if you'd like. We're collecting information because the more personal stories we have to share with the people who make the rules and actually do the training and have to enforce this stuff, the better. We have to humanize it, because otherwise they're just looking at numbers on a page and it doesn't mean as much. So thank you all for being here and for sharing with us today, because it does mean a lot and it does help move the process along.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're grateful for your interest in our work, and we're especially grateful for the ways that you all are out there serving the community and really helping to ensure that all people in Pittsburgh get a fair shot. And we will do our part to make sure that that is true as well. Is there any other business to come before the commission this afternoon? Right. Well, our next meeting is on April Fool's Day. It is coming up on Monday, April 1st, and we will meet as regularly scheduled in our offices and the conference room on the 9th floor of the City County Building, and via Zoom. And all of our meetings are recorded and shared to our Facebook page, and the minutes are publicly available. So please know that we're trying to make sure that the work that we do gets out there in all the appropriate ways, so that you can keep us accountable to following up on what we've heard today and the other experiences that people have shared.
Thank you also to City Channel for being here to capture
Yeah.
the moments today, because their support is really important for, again, capturing the information and making sure that we can share it with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, cool. I think that's a motion and a second. I'm in favor. Tiara, are you in favor of adjourning?
Yes.
All right, then I think that's unanimous. So, all right, perfect. I'll declare this meeting to be adjourned. We'll meet again in April, and we're very, very grateful to you all being here today.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Super.
Thank
Thanks so
you,
much.
Tiara. Take care.